Now, lastly, I want to talk about family violence. Now, family violence can get very, very complicated, mainly because of the distinctiveness within family dynamics. Now, working with kids and families at my respite care, it's pretty obvious that there isn't just one story. You can't just listen to one side and know, bam, that's for it. That's it. That's for sure the problem, because there are so many layers, and it's so complex that you can't sometimes just find the understanding of how it got to that point. But one way to realize it is to know how we're modeling ourselves. And I want to kind of talk about modeling and how it's basically defined as like children that occasionally learn behaviors from those around them. And this is important because we look at this graph that I have on the slide, and it talks about exposure to types of violence, and just being exposed to it predisposes violence in their future. And I know we can look at all the other cool facts that have everything separated, but I want to look at the one on the far left where it says 60.6% with the any exposure. I genuinely believe that could be higher due to internet and due to the ability for kids to see different types of violence more often. And that can just also create this predisposed idea of dealing with things in a violent manner. And this, where you see this 45% from on your screen, is basically on page 118. It talks about how 45% of male batterers had witnessed their father beating their mother. And I feel like that means there is a true strong correlation with high cortisol in a rough environment growing up that can make it predisposed. And where I find a problem too in the beginning is also that association with love and violence, where it also talks on page 119 about how some batters develop a long-time association with love and violence, and perhaps caused by physical punishment due to someone in the family early in infancy or somebody that they care about. Basically saying, I'm doing this because I love you. I'm doing this because this is what so-and-so. So basically giving a bullcrap excuse to why they're hurting instead of just saying, or to why they're abusing instead of just saying how they feel. Because usually that takes a lot of time, patience, understanding, and most of the time the impulsivity is very high with these types of people, so it can be tough. And I feel like this also brings up a good conversation about how generational traumas can be reoccurring within a family, and the early childhood high cortisol intake could be huge for understanding why a person who has gone through so much high cortisol has behavior primarily rooted in fear. With many of the batters, it's apparent that fear drives them to make violent decisions and behaviors in the future. So who's to say that most of these kids grow up and don't work to correct these triggers and just are predisposed to violence? And I feel like this creates that generational trauma that can keep reoccurring within a family. And that leads me into the socioeconomic status, because when we look at generational traumas, it seems like they happen to reoccur more in families with low income or in this low socioeconomic status. And the only reason I say that is because in higher economic status, socioeconomic status, it's easier to get help. It's easier to get those generational traumas fixed or focused on or understood or somewhat viewed. But I feel like with low socioeconomic status families, it's harder to get that kind of treatment, or it's harder to really get to the root of a lot of the causes. And it doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that they gotta work a little bit harder. But yeah, if you go to the next one, I have a TED Talk on understanding healthy love. I feel like that one's pretty important. And then, yeah, these are my references. I hope you guys have a good day.